You know, when a show you absolutely love gets a second chance, the hype is just unreal. But what happens when that revival doesn't just miss the mark, but creates an absolute firestorm online? Well, that's what we're digging into today. We're going to break down a really intense online critique of Daredevil Born Again to see just how a fan backlash is born. So, right out of the gate, the commentary we're looking at, well, it doesn't pull any punches. At all. This one question just sets the whole tone. It's not about a show being a little disappointing. In this critic's eyes, it was a complete and utter disaster. So where did it all go wrong, according to this critique? Well, the argument is that the problems weren't hidden deep in the season. Nope, they were right there, front and center, from the very first scene. The disappointment was immediate.
And the complaints were super specific. The critic points to what they call horrible CG and a weird rubberiness to the action, where nothing feels like it has any real weight or impact. Even the creative choices, like shifting the aspect ratio to show Daredevil's senses, were just brushed off as cheap editing tricks. For this viewer, it all just felt disrespectful to the show they loved.
Okay, so beyond the technical stuff, the real heart of the backlash seems to be about the characters. This is where the critic argues the show really betrayed its roots.
And this slide just illustrates the point perfectly. On the left, you've got Wesley from the Netflix show Kingpin's right-hand man, a genuinely great character. And on the right, his replacement is basically laughed at as this random, evil British butler who just shows up with zero explanation. The argument is clear. They swapped out real character depth for a bizarre, nonsensical cartoon.
This quote just hits you with that sense of loss, right? It's not just that the new guy was bad, it's about the huge hole left behind by a character who was so good. The critic here is basically saying that killing Wesley in the original show was a huge mistake, one this new series had absolutely no idea how to fix.
But the problems didn't stop there, not by a long shot. The biggest downgrade, according to this source, was what they did to the big man himself, Wilson Fisk. I mean, they put the terrifying Kingpin in therapy, gave him a cheating wife, and saddled him with a storyline so bad it was labeled disqualifying. It was seen as making him weaker than he was in his brief appearances in Hawkeye and Echo. A massive step down for a legendary villain.
So, if the characters were mishandled, what about the story itself? Well, the critique argues that all these bizarre plot points we saw are a direct result of a production that was, to put it mildly, a complete mess.
And this criticism really comes to a head with one now infamous subplot. The critic describes a scene where Matt Murdock defends a guy for stealing cereal, not because he was starving, but just because he wanted to taste it. And the legal defense? It becomes about blaming the system. For this critic, this was the moment they knew the writers just did not understand the main character at all.
And this quote just captures that feeling of betrayal perfectly. The Matt Murdock the fans know from the comics and the original show, he's a guy who, for all his flaws, believes in the rule of law and in personal responsibility. So from this perspective, this whole storyline was just an unforgivable slap in the face to the character's core identity. And this production timeline, well, it might explain how things went so sideways. The source lays it out. They filmed a version of the season, realized it was a disaster, and fired the entire creative team. Then they brought in new people to do massive reshoots, trying to Frankenstein a fixed season together from old and new parts. It's presented as the textbook definition of a chaotic production.
So, did all these creative problems actually matter to the audience? Did people even watch? According to this analysis, the answer is a huge, resounding no. Let's look at the numbers they point to. This single number is held up as the final judgment, 96. A show that was supposed to be a triumphant return for a massive fan favorite, apparently just barely scraped onto a top 100 list. To the critic, this wasn't just underperforming, it was a catastrophic failure to connect with anyone.
And the fallout from that is seen as something that's going to last. The argument is that the first season wasn't just bad, it actively killed the audience for any seasons to come. In this view, the show didn't just fail to win over new fans, it actually pushed the old ones away for good.
Which brings us to the final, incredibly blunt conclusion of this entire critique. After all of this, the characters, the story, the terrible reception, is there any hope left for this show?
And there it is. The verdict is completely unambiguous. It's not the damage might be done or it'll be tough to recover. It's just damage done. Twice. In this viewpoint, the choices made in this season have wounded the franchise so badly that it simply can't be fixed.
And that really leaves us with a question that's bigger than just one show, doesn't it? When a revival breaks trust with its audience this badly, is a second chance even on the table? Can a show ever really come back from that? Or is the damage, well, truly done? It's definitely something to think about.